breaking news on the war in Iran. President Trump announcing moments ago a naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz is beginning. Coming up in moments, President Trump will join me in an exclusive interview to give us the very latest on the war on Iran, as high-level talks between the United States and Iran have concluded with no deal. It was the first direct talks between the two countries in a decade, and the highest level talks between the two since the Islamic Revolution in 1979. The talks beginning on Saturday and lasting 21 hours in Islamabad, Pakistan. Vice President J.D. Vance was in Pakistan leading the U.S. delegation, along with Jared Kushner and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, as a fragile ceasefire has been underway between the two sides since Tuesday, after President Trump agreed to give Iran 2 more weeks to open up the Strait of Hormuz or face further destruction. Now the president will implement a naval blockade on the strait. Here's Vice President J.D. Vance after the talks in Islamabad this morning.
We have been at it now for 21 hours, and we've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America.
Joining me now live on the telephone with the very latest is the nation's 45th and 47th President of the United States, President Donald J. Trump. Mr. President, thank you so much for being with me this morning. I know that your time is limited, and we appreciate you making the time to explain all of this to our audience. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Maria.
Mr. President, can you explain to us what is going on right now with the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, we're going to be blockading. It'll take a little while, but it'll be effective pretty soon. And we had meetings yesterday. They, as you said, lasted 21 hours. That was a long meeting. We had some very, very good representatives, as you know, JD and Steve and Jared. So we were well represented, but we didn't get there on the important issue. They want to have nuclear weapons. They're not going to have nuclear weapons. I've been saying that for 30 years. I would never allow that to happen before I was in politics. And that country will not have nuclear weapons. Most countries shouldn't be allowed to have, but that country will not have nuclear weapons.
So, Mr. President, was that the red line there? Can you explain to us what went on in these talks? What did the United States ask of Iran, and how did they react?
Well, they reacted. You know, it was very interesting. It started off weak. They came in like they had the cards, but they don't have the cards. Their army, their whole military is obliterated. The whole place is obliterated. And, you know, as you know, levels of leaders are gone. They're literally gone. Khomeini's gone. The whole thing is gone. The whole place is gone. They have one thing that they can do. They can say, well, gee, we're going to put a mine someplace just a mine. We'll drop 1 mine, 2 mines, 10 mines. And that will, if you have a ship that costs $1 billion, you say, well, you know, I'd prefer not getting whacked by a mine, losing my ship or damaging it badly, at least. And so that's a little bit of a thing that they can do, that it's military might and military power don't do it, but, you know, it's extortion, and they're extorting the world. You know, we don't get our oil from there. We have so much oil. And one thing you said, and I don't know if anybody heard it well, but we have boats pouring up to the United States. They'll be filling them up, and they'll be leaving, and they're going to be packed with the best oil you can get, light, sweet, crude. They're going to have the best oil that you can get. But so that's interesting, and it's great because we have a lot of oil. We don't get any. I mean, literally last year it was 1%. We did that as a favor. We don't need this strait. But other countries do. And I will tell you, while we're on the subject, we're very disappointed with NATO. We're very, very disappointed that they didn't come. Now they want to come and they want to help with the strait, and it won't take long to clean it out. So we're going to clean out the strait, and they'll be able to use the strait in not too long a distance. But we had a very intensive negotiation, and toward the end it got very friendly, and we got just about every point we needed, except for the fact that they refused to give up their nuclear ambition. And that's the only point, frankly, to me, that was the most important point by far.
And I want to ask you about that, and I will get to NATO as well. But, Mr. President, you wrote on Truth Social this morning saying that we will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz. And at some point, we will reach an all being allowed to go in and all being allowed to go out. basis.
Right.
So tell us what you're trying to accomplish with this blockade,
all in,
sir.
all out. Yep, it's called all in and all out. There'll be a time when we'll have them all come in and all come out, but it won't be a percentage. It won't be a friend of yours, like a country that's your ally or a country that's your friend. It's all or nothing, and that won't be in too long a distance. No, we're just bringing the ships up. We got a lot of ships, so we're bringing them up. We think that numerous countries are going to be helping us with this also, but we're putting on a complete blockade. We're not going to let Iran make money on selling oil to people that they like and not people that they don't like or whatever it is. It's going to be all or none, and that's the way it is. And it'll be, you saw what we did with Venezuela. It'll be something very similar to that, but at a higher level.
And Mr. President, you say that there may be a mine out there somewhere that nobody knows about but them, and this is world extortion. How will the United States ensure that the mines are removed in the Strait of Hormuz?
So we have minesweepers there now. We have highly sophisticated underwater minesweepers, which are the latest and the greatest, but we're also bringing in more traditional minesweepers. And so I understand is the UK and a couple of other countries are sending minesweepers. A lot of countries don't have minesweepers. Think of it. They had 28 mine droppers. What country has 28 mine droppers? 28 boats to drop mines. What country? They've been completely obliterated. They no longer. So we knocked out their entire Navy. They have 158 ships. They have 28 mine droppers. Every single one of them is at the bottom of the sea. Can you believe it? We did that in 4 days. Their Air Force is gone. Their if you look, anti-aircraft. All of their radars out. Anti-aircraft is their defensive program is all knocked out. They don't have anything. And you know the sad part is, and I can't say this is for you. We knocked out everything, including their leaders. Their military's gone. Everything's gone. Their missiles are down to a trickle. By comparison, you know, we knocked out thousands of missiles. We knocked out hundreds of places where the missiles are built, different parts. They're pretty much gone. Probably they say 85, 82%, 85%. Who knows what it is? But we knocked them out. We knocked out where they make the drones, and the drones are less effective now. And also, we have new machinery to kill the drones. You saw that. The computerized bullets, they call it, and also lasers. The laser melts the drone. It's a beautiful thing to see. So we have a lot of stuff. But think of it. We win this thing conclusively. Even yesterday, they were saying, no, it was a complete obliteration. And when you read the New York Times, you think they're doing well. Oh, they're fighting very hard. It wasn't a hard battle. This was a very easy battle militarily. But when somebody says, you know, we're going to drop a mine in the middle of the Strait of Hormuz, not much you can do to persuade a ship owner that has $1 billion ship that we're going to take a trip up the strait. Now, yesterday, you probably saw, we sent 2 highly sophisticated, beautiful, brand new destroyers right through the middle of the strait. And nobody did anything to us because what we do is we follow the weapon back. So it follows back and it knocks out the people on the other side. Literally within 3 minutes, they're knocked out. The technology is unbelievable. But we don't know whether or not they do, whether or not they put mines. They didn't talk about it yesterday. My inclination is to have a few. And I will tell you, it was a good meeting yesterday, really a good meeting, except for one problem. And it's 95%. They want to have nuclear weapons. It's not going to happen.
And this is a key point, Mr. President. For those people out there who have not been following it as closely, can you explain to those people why it was critical for the United States to go into Iran? Can you articulate what was behind that move that was so important for the U.S. to go into Iran?
Yeah, so easy. The easiest question you've asked me so far. They can't have nuclear weapons. They have nuclear. They want to enrich what they have. They want to enrich more. As you know, we knocked out with the B-2 bombers. Had we not knocked that out, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month after we knocked out. In other words, had the B-2s, those beautiful B-2 bombers, totally obliterated their 3 sites. They have 3 sites. And they are now deep in the earth with, you know, tons of rock. Now, that material should be gotten, but we have cameras on it. We have satellites with Space Force. That was one of my beauties, Space Force. So important. But we're watching those. We're watching every single aspect of that area. They can't move without us knowing exactly what's going on. But but it's deep down, and it takes a long time to get it out. It's an amazing attack. Had we not done that, they would have had, within 1 month from that date, they would have had a nuclear weapon.
Right.
If they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it on Israel and the Middle East. Look, they went after 5 countries that were sort of neutral, I guess. I don't know how friendly they were, but they weren't in the line of attack. They dropped on UAE probably 1,800 missiles. They dropped on Saudi Arabia a lot, and they dropped on Qatar a lot. They dropped on Bahrain. They went crazy, and everyone was surprised. Actually, it was good for us because they all joined us immediately. At some point. I mean, they're either going to be petrified or they're going to join. They all joined, and they've been very helpful. All of these countries have been great, and Kuwait.
And this is the key point that I was getting to, and the reason that you feel they cannot have a nuclear weapon, because they will use it. And that's what I wanted you to explain to the audience.
Yeah, I think they would use it. And they'd start with Israel, and one weapon would, do damage like nobody's ever seen. Wipe it out, conceivably, big one.
Now,
not wipe it out. They don't need more than one. And then they go after the Middle East, and then they'd eventually come here, okay? And we're not letting them come here, and we're not going to let them. We have great allies over there. I'll tell you, those 5 countries, look at the Israeli relationship. Look at the incredible partnership we have on this. And, as Bibi Netanyahu said, we're the big brother and they're the small brother. And, it's been a very effective team. What we've done literally in a matter of days, within 3-4 days, Iran essentially was wiped out. And it's so sad, though, when the press says they're fighting bravely. They're not fighting bravely. They have no anti-aircraft. We fly over there at will, can take out anything we want. As you know, last week I said we're going to strongly consider knocking out their power plants and the rest of their bridges. We took down their big bridge, but we just did that because we were having good discussions, and they go to the press. They're very good with public relations, much better with public relations than they are at fighting. They go to the press, and they say, President Trump said it's okay for us to have a nuclear weapon, when I never even spoke to him. And by the way, that would be the only thing I would never say to them. And they know that.
Right.
And then the New York Times, which is a fake paper. It's just a fake. You just believe the opposite. It's so sad when you look at CNN, the New York Times, ABC fake news, NBC fake news. When you look at this stuff, it's so sad to see it. I mean, they report things that they know are false. It's almost treasonous, actually, if you want to really know the truth. It's almost treasonous. But if you're reading the New York Times exclusively, and their circulation, by the way, is way down.
Yeah.
It's way down. I'm proud to report that. But if you're reading the New York Times exclusively, you would say that they are doing great in the war.
Mr. President,
they're doing terribly.
I want to ask you about
The only
that.
thing they have is the ability to say, well, we may have some mines. And if you have a ship, who wants to take a chance? You're not going to take a chance.
Mr. President, I want to ask you about that because you put out a tweet and it really gripped the nation a week ago when we were all waiting and watching for the United States' next move should the Iranians not open the Strait of Hormuz. And you wrote this on Truth Social. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have a complete and total regime change where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something wonderful can happen. Mr. President, you were criticized for this tweet because you said a whole civilization will die tonight. What do you want to say about that? And what can you tell us about next steps here? Are you planning further destruction?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. That statement brought them to the table, with the exception of the one thing, which I believe that they're going to give up on. I believe they're going to give up on that pretty soon, to be honest, because it's not going to work. We actually thought we had them, and then all of a sudden they said, no, we want. So, but I believe, no. And when I say that, but remember, what do they say to us? For years, I've had to listen to them say, death to America, right?
My entire life.
Death to America, death to Israel, America, the Satan. We will destroy America, death to America. Now, does anybody ever complain to you when they say that? I think that's a big step worse. Death to America. So they're allowed to say death to America. And what I'm referring to is When I talk about civilization, it'll be much different because their military will be totally gone. It's pretty much gone now. But their military, look at their leadership. We have had regime change because the people we dealt with yesterday were, frankly, very smart, very sharp, very good, very good. I think they were smarter than the people from before, Khomeini and that group. Because look what it got them. Look what all of their antics were spending they spent all their money on weapons. We've destroyed most of those weapons. But, when I say about a civilization, it really has changed. It really has. But
These I gotta kill.
They're allowed to say,
2.
death to America, death to this, death to... I make one statement, they say, oh, such a big deal. Let me tell you, that statement got them to the bargaining table, and they haven't left. They haven't left the bargaining table. I predict they come back and they give us everything we want. And I told my people, I want everything. I don't want 90%. I don't want 95%. I told them, I want everything.
Well, and what they
have
want...
no cards, Maria.
Yep.
They have no cards. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Totally gone. They have nothing. They have no ships. 158 ships are at the bottom of the sea. Good ones. Good ones. New. The Soleimani, they had one called the Soleimani, was taken out by one of our Tiger Sharks, by one of our rapidly moving submarines. It's amazing. Our military is so good. Do you know our military is a 94% approval rating now?
Well,
Congress has a 14%. The media has a 12%. When I started, the media had a 92% approval rating. Now they're down to 14%.
Wow.
And I'm very proud of it because they're very dishonest.
Mr. President, I see what just took place in terms of our NATO allies pushing back and not supporting you and the United States. And I see what has happened with our Gulf allies in the Middle East who do not want a bully in the Middle East any longer. Are you expecting those Gulf allies to help you in this blockade in the Strait of Hormuz?
Oh, yeah.
What
sure.
other countries are going to join that?
Started. So the Gulf states, now you could say they're much closer, so maybe they have to do it. But, they also could stay out. But they made a mistake when they started lobbing missiles at them. And here's the good thing. The Gulf states, they are rich and they have a lot of Patriots. Our Patriot missile, which is an anti-missile missile, and it's unbelievable. They fired at us one day at a certain asset that we have, namely the aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln, one of the beauties of the world, one of the great beauties of the world. They fired 101 missiles out of 100. These things are going more than 2,000 miles an hour. And out of 101 missiles, 101 were shot down like nothing and are now at the bottom of the sea, the remnants of them. Think of it, 101 missiles shot. In a short period of time, all 101 were knocked out. So we have the greatest military equipment. We have the greatest people. We have the strongest military in the world by far, and everybody sees it, whether it's Venezuela or what we've done with Iran. And when I read fake news talking about how well Iran's doing, they're not doing well at all. They're getting killed. I could take out Iran in one day. I could take down in 1 hour. I could have their entire energy, everything, every one of their plants, their electric generating plants, which is a big deal. And I hate to do it because if I do it, it takes you 10 years to rebuild. They'll never be able to rebuild it. And the other thing you take out are the bridges. I took out one just to show them because they went public with a statement that wasn't true. They admitted it. I say, I'm going to take out a bridge. And I took out a bridge. And that was the end of that. Now they've been really behaving quite well. But in one half of a day, they wouldn't have one bridge standing. They wouldn't have one electric generating plant standing. And they're back in the Stone Ages. I'd rather not do that. But I do believe they're going to come to the table on this because nobody can be so stupid as to say that we want to have nuclear weapons and they have no cards. They have no cards whatsoever.
So if they do not give up that effort, is that the plan? Will you further destruct Iran?
Yeah, I will. If they don't give that plan up, yeah. I'm not in huge hurry. What we want to do is we'll open up the strait. But the ships are coming up to the United States.
Let's talk about that.
I've been inviting everybody. It's pretty good.
Let's talk about that, Mr. President, because you referred to a post that hundreds of super tankers are headed to the Gulf of America to buy oil and gas from the U.S. What can you tell us about that, sir?
Well, I can tell you that it used to be called the Gulf of Mexico. That's what I can tell you. Now it's called the Gulf of America because of me. One of my little things that I did, one of my little sidelines. And it's a great honor. People are so happy. You go to Louisiana, you go to Florida, you go to these states, Texas. They're so honored by it. I used to say, why is that the Gulf of Mexico when we have 93% of the frontage? And, it fronts 93% of the United States. I said, I think I'm going to change it to the Gulf of America. What a beautiful name. And I did. And I give a lot of credit to Google because once I filed the papers, I did it. And Google Map, once Google Map changed, did it, it was a done deal. But we had lawsuits, we won everything. And it's now the Gulf of America, which I'm very honored by.
But do you expect super
I might tell you, I was thinking about
What's that
calling it
noise?
the Gulf of Trump, and I decided not to do it. I think maybe it was a wise. I think that one maybe wouldn't have worked out. I'm not so sure. You'll have to tell me. But I was thinking about it's going to be called the Gulf of Trump. And then I said, that's not going to play too well.
I think you're.
No, I'm kidding.
You're being facetious.
Now,
I know that, Mr. President. But what about oil exporters? Tell me about this, because do you expect empty super tankers to go to the Gulf of America, to go to Louisiana, go to Texas?
Well, they're already coming. Well, Texas, they're going to go to Texas. They're going to go all along our shoreline. I mean, we have the biggest ports, and they're going to go. Remember this, and this is pretty amazing. This is my time. That when I came into office, we were third and fourth in.
Oh, it's freaking Final Fantasy. That's what it is.
The oil and gas.
It's playing in the background.
Now we're bigger than Saudi Arabia. Think of this, and we're bigger than Saudi Arabia. Add Saudi Arabia.
We're trying to figure out what that noise was.
And add another country in there, whichever one you want. We're bigger than all of them combined. Think of that. That's all because of Trump. And when Biden inherited that system, he changed it. Then he tried going back to it because the oil was going up. You remember it was going up $7, $8, etc. But look at even now. We have to get rid of this nuclear threat. And people in our country have oil. People in other countries are getting hurt. One of the things that most amazes me, though, the strait is for Japan, where they get 93% of their oil. You know that, Japan. South Korea gets 45% of its oil. These people haven't helped us. I say, are you guys going to help? And, we have 45,000 soldiers and 50,000, respectively, at those two places. 45 and 50,000 soldiers. We guard them and protect them. And when we want a little help, they don't help us. And when we wanted help from NATO, they don't help us. And we paid, I don't know if you saw, almost $1 trillion toward NATO in a very short period of time to protect them against Russia, mostly. Yeah. And then when we're there, and, Biden, I wouldn't have done this. You wouldn't have had the Ukraine problem. Russia would have never attacked Ukraine. But under Biden, who was an incompetent president, he was grossly incompetent. Look, the election was rigged. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that now. And it's all come out, and it's coming out. But under Biden, if you take a look at what happened, when he was president, that's a war that would have never happened. Russia attacking Ukraine.
Yep.
And I ended 8 wars, including Pakistan. Pakistan was great yesterday. They were the ones that really facilitated the meeting.
Right.
But they thanked it. Every time I see them, they thank me. They say, we're going to have a war with India. And as the prime minister said very openly to everybody, between 30 to 50 million people would have been killed. And I got it ended. I said, if you guys are going to have a war, we're not going to do any trading with you.
Well,
and believe it or not, I got it ended because of tariffs.
Mr.
Which
President,
the Supreme Court was not nice to me about.
Is this all going to be enough? The blockade in the strait, the opening up capacity in the United States is this going to be enough to lower the price of oil and gas, sir?
Well, eventually it's going to be lowered. No, it might not happen initially, but it's going to go down. When this is all over, look, the stock market, the Dow hit 50,000. It was supposed to be in 4 or 5 years. They said it won't happen during his term, but it'll be maybe 4 or 5 years. It hit 50,000 in my first year. You know it better than anybody. You cover it better than anybody. The S&P hit 7,000 in my first year. Before my first year, you know that. And I said to myself,
"Oh, I need to grab a.
I got to stop this country from having a nuclear weapon. You want to see a stock market go down? Let a couple of nuclear bombs be dropped on us, or frankly, any place else. and you'll see a stock market that goes down.
That's not
So
true.
the stock market has not gone down very much at all. Gone down a little bit, much less than I thought. And frankly, the gas hasn't gone up as much as I thought. But regardless, even if it did, we have to stop this group of people from having. And again, it was worse because Khomeini was a total, radical. I'll be nice, maniac. He was a maniac.
Nice.
And you can't let them have.
Won't be nice to Khomeini.
So I just have the greatest economy ever. Everything's going along, and I say, I'm sorry. I tell my economic advisors, I say, I'm sorry, fellas. We're in great shape. We have to go and take a little journey down to Iran, and we have to stop them from having a nuclear weapon. They all said, we agree.
So do you believe the price of oil and gas will be lower before the midterm elections?
I hope so. I mean, I think so. It could be, or the same, or maybe a little bit higher. But it should be around the same. I think this won't be that much longer. They're wiped out, man. They're wiped out, and you don't get a fair shake. You don't get. We need a free and fair press in this country, and I don't even know why people would do that. Why would they say how wonderful they're doing militarily? They're doing so well. The country is wiped out. We lost one airplane, and we captured the two pilots. How about we saved those two pilots?
Unbelievable.
Which no other country has the capability of doing. Usually when that happens, countries wave goodbye. They say, lots of luck, because you're going deep into enemy.
Yeah.
We went 7 hours into, it was a 7-hour flight.
Yes.
To go in and get them. We had one of the roughest areas, one of the most dangerous areas in the world, and we got both of them. It was incredible. But
extraordinary.
We got both of them.
And thank God that for our military, and I know that you rebuilt the military. Now, Mr. President, before you go, it was you who did the maximum campaign against Iran in your first term. Right. Is it going to be back to the maximum campaign? You deemed them the leading sponsor of terrorism. And I have to ask you about all of these efforts and the impact on China. What you've done in Venezuela, Iran, even your comments about Cuba. Where does that put China as you approach this meeting with Xi Jinping next month?
Sure. Well, in the maximum campaign, you can't do any more maximum. We've wiped out their whole country, essentially. The only thing left, really, is their water, which would be very devastating to hit. I would hate to do it. But it's their water, their desalinization plants, their electric generating plants, which are very easy to hit. We could hit them. We could have them all down. And I mean down like you couldn't have electricity for 10 years, because it takes you 10 years to build those plants from scratch. You'd never probably be able to build them again. And the bridges. So that's really the only thing. We still have some more missile manufacturing plants. We know every one of them. We will do that. We still have other things. But when you talk about maximum, I think, outside of those few things that are remaining, I think I pretty much maxed that. You are very, very violent and vicious. I don't want to have you against me. I'll tell you what you say. I think we pretty much maxed out, other than those few items. And we still have some plants left. We had another week left to knock out the rest of the plants, but we were knocking them out fast. As far as China is concerned, China can send their ships to us. China can send their ships to Venezuela. We told them, buy from Venezuela. We have a lot of overcapacity. We'd sell them, and we'll probably sell it for even less money. I have a very good
overcapacity, then lower our prices.
China, and we work together very well. They're paying us substantial money, as you know.
That's what I don't
We've
understand.
never got money before. I listened to this Gordon Chang. He has no idea what he's talking about. We have been very tough on China, tough but fair. And it's
overcapacity, and we have too much surplus.
A very good relationship with China, and they've been during my
price should go down. It's $1 over what it's supposed to be.
On all Chinese cars coming in, and that's
it ain't Joe Biden's $3 over, but still $1 over.
And BMW, etc. And we don't have any Chinese cars in our country because they would have.
Oh shit! I forgot there was a mechanic. I forgot there was a mechanic. I got distracted.
So I put 100% tariff on.
Son of a bitch.
In fairness to Biden, he allowed it to stay on.
I got a little mad at gas price.
It's about the only thing he did good, but he allowed it to stay. So we don't have the problem that they have. They're having tremendous economic problems in Europe, because they're being just swamped with these Chinese cars.
I didn't even realize it was a mechanic.
But Mr. President, just to be clear, you said the other day that any country that supports Iran and sends military equipment to Iran will face a 50%
Do you guys hear my belly
tariff
rumble? Holy
if
shit.
they try
That's
to bring
correct.
products. Did you refer to China? Did you mean China?
Yes, and other people, but yes, China too. If
No,
we
don't
buy
do that.
China, because I hear news reports, so a news report doesn't mean much to me because they're so fake. But I hear news reports about China giving the shoulder missiles, what's called the shoulder missile, anti-aircraft missile. I doubt they would do that because I have a relationship, and I think they wouldn't do that. But maybe they did a little bit at the beginning, but I don't think they would anymore. No. But if we catch them doing that, they get a 50% tariff, which is that's a staggering amount.
And did you want to say anything about our NATO allies in terms of what comes next for them, given that, I mean, is it time for them to call Iran the leading state sponsor of terrorism? And what are you going to do because they did not help in this effort?
Leave NATO.
Well, NATO is shameful. I mean, I didn't go wild at it. We didn't need any help. I would actually say, if you want to help, great. If you don't want to help, that's okay. And they say, oh, well, would rather not, sir, would rather not. They weren't there for us, If I would have done it with force, maybe I could have gotten them to come in, but they would have come in really begrudgingly, and they would have stayed way behind. No, I'm very disappointed. I mean, look at the United Kingdom. I love the United Kingdom. My mother was, as you know, born in Scotland, and love it. But Mr. Starmer, PM Starmer said, we'll send the equipment after the war is over. I said, you don't need equipment when the war is over. You need the equipment before the war starts or during the war. He said, no, we'll send it after. He made a public statement that we will send equipment after the war is over. It was that's a Neville Chamberlain type of statement. And Germany, the same thing. He said, we didn't start this. Well, we helped them with Ukraine. It would have never happened if I was president, by the way. We would have had the problem with Russia and Ukraine, but, we had an incompetent president. But Germany said, talked all about that we demand, and strong, we demand that this war stop. But most importantly, he said, we didn't start the war. Well, we didn't start the war with Ukraine, but we helped them. I mean, Biden gave them $350 billion. I'm not giving it. I sell things to NATO, and they do what they want with it. I guess they give it to Ukraine, but I sell things at full price.
Yeah. And
we sell it to NATO, and they do what they want with it. But think of it, to make that statement after we've spent $350 billion, they made a statement. The German statement was bad, but all the statements were bad. No, we have to re-examine NATO because they weren't there for us. And let me tell you, and I've said this for 25 years, they weren't there for us, and they won't be there for us.
Yeah.
They weren't there for us. This is just a military operation. This is not a hard thing for us. We are so much more powerful. I rebuilt our military in the first term. I'm using it in my second term.
Yep.
And we have the greatest military anywhere in the world. And now I was right with spending all that money on the military. We have the greatest military in the world. We have the greatest equipment in the world. And it's amazing what we've been able to do. You look at Venezuela. We're doing so well with Venezuela. Great time to have Venezuela. And by the way, Venezuela now is making more money than they've ever made before, and we're participating in those profits.
Right. Well, Mr. President, we want to respect your time. I know how busy you are this morning, and I know that we will have part 2 of this interview this week at the White House. So I want to thank you so much for calling in and breaking all of this news this morning, sir. I will see you this upcoming week in the Oval Office, sir, for part 2 of our interview when we discuss the broader issues and the impact on the economy, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you. Bye.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
Guess that's our update for today. Oh shit, I gotta stun him. I forgot to stun him. Ah! That's what I get for multitasking. Freedom. Alright, the demon's coming back. Threads. Volley. Finger. Good. Let's make sure. Straight.
All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. New threats even amid this ceasefire as President Trump saying there will be a blockade immediately of the Strait of Hormuz following these failed negotiations between these two countries. Is this the post on social media from the president saying, so there you have it. The meeting went well. Most points were agreed to, but the only point that really mattered, nuclear, was not effective immediately. The United States Navy, the finest in the world, will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz. So big developments there. And he also clarified a little bit earlier on here on Sunday Morning Futures on Fox News, saying it's called all in and all out. We think that numerous countries are going to be helping us with this also, but we're putting on a complete blockade. We're not going to let Iran make money on selling oil to people that they like, that people that they don't like, or whatever it is. It's going to be all or none. Let's be joined right now here by retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, research fellow at Defense Priorities, military expert. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And when you hear the word blockade, you're saying no ships in or out. What will it take for the U.S. Navy to accomplish that?
Well, fortunately, because the strait is so narrow, it won't take much, and most of our ships are probably, or at least a good portion of them, are in the Gulf of Oman, or just not far out of it. So it would actually be a fairly easy thing to do to keep anything from going out. That's not the hard part. The